Good morning, friends. Prepared Suburbanite back at you. Today is the Monday, the 17th of October, and what I wanted to talk about today was simply being aware. It's got a lot to do with situational awareness, what we need to keep in mind when we're out surfing the internet, when we're paying attention to the news, the weather reports, happenings in our own community. That's the kind of stuff that we need as preppers to be very aware of. We've got a big change in the weather coming, and I want to talk about being aware and being prepared for that kind of a change. So stick around. So national weather forecasts are calling for a huge upturn, or a downturn, I guess, in the temperatures. Right here in North Carolina, the temperature right now is about 69 to 71 degrees right here in my little backyard neighborhood, and that's what we woke up to. In fact, it feels a little humid because the dew points are pretty high. But the National Weather Service is calling for a huge change. There's an Arctic cold front coming through. It's going to sweep through the area later tonight and into tomorrow. And there are places already in central and northern North Carolina that are under frost and even freeze warnings. So some of the practical tips that I'm going to share with you right now is make sure you're ready for this kind of stuff. Now, it's very early here in North Carolina to be experiencing frost and freeze warnings, but if you've got tender plants in your garden, like we just recently planted, we've got winter peas and onions and garlic that we put in our winter garden beds, and we are going to have to make sure that first thing, maybe by noon tomorrow, that we get them covered. And I've already started that process. We've got the plastic covers, we got the hoops up, and we're just kind of waiting for the right moment in time to cover those truly perishable kinds of things. Now, I've got some leaf mulch all ready to go to cover the onions and the garlic, and but I can't put the leaf mulch on the peas. So what we're going to do is cover the garden beds with plastic cover, like a greenhouse effect, during the day tomorrow while it's still fairly warm, so that we can keep that inside area warmed up, and they keep those tender little shoots as warm as they can be. And we're going to probably have to keep it covered for 3 or 4 days before it actually warms up enough to do that. Along that same line, we've got some fragile house plants that are sitting out on our deck that we are going to have to bring in. My wife has been experimenting with trying to grow avocados in a pot, and it's actually working pretty well. We've got an avocado plant that's about 14-15 inches tall right now, and it's leafed out, so it may be going to produce an avocado for us, so we'll see. But that's going to be very susceptible to cold weather, so we got to remember to bring that in. So start the checklist, cover your gardens, and bring in your fragile plants from any outside influence. Related to that, as you wander around your property, take a look at what you've got hooked up to your external water faucets. Well, I've got 3 external water faucets here at this property, and I've got a hose hooked up to each one of them. And if we're going to get a freeze, it's best to unhook all that stuff, make sure that the water's turned off at the spigot, drain out the hoses the best you can, and that's going to prevent anything from freezing, cracking, all that. Hard lesson I learned when I lived in New Hampshire. Forgot to do it one time, that's all it took. And yep, the hose froze, the faucet froze, and it froze back into the basement of the house that we owned at the time. And it took a day or so before it warmed up enough for the ice inside that pipe to melt, and that's when the leak started. And it was spraying all over the basement. It was terrible. Thankfully, there was a shut-off there, so I was able to shut off the water, and within a couple of days, after making a trip to the hardware store, had a new faucet, had a relief shut-off valve installed, got it all soldered back together, put it back together and all that. But that was a pretty tough lesson to learn. So I try to make it part of the winterizing habit around here to unhook all those hoses from all the external faucets, shut things off, drain the hoses the best you can, and truly hope for the best. Situational awareness, I think, is a big thing. I wish more people were aware of what's going on in their neighborhoods. I am seeing so many reports of vandalism and outright crime here in my little neighborhood. And this is a very nice neighborhood, I'll put it that way. And there's a lot of homes that are worth a lot of money. And people, I think, have, like me, have gotten used to living in a very safe environment, and they're not truly paying attention to what's going on. You can end up with all kinds of problems. Every day in the local news, I'm hearing about groups of people scouring neighborhoods looking for unlocked vehicles that they can easily get to that aren't in the bright street lit areas, and they're breaking in, they're stealing the vehicles, they're stealing the contents of the vehicles, they're just raising all kinds of havoc with everything. There was a report just the other day, I think Saturday morning, where a local neighbor had inflatable Halloween decorations along the street in front of her home. Got up that morning and went out and looked, and they were all deflated. She found that they had been slashed with a knife or a razor or a box cutter or something, and she probably had 6 or 7 inflatables, big pumpkins and skeletons and that kind of stuff, and just boom, gone. Her security cameras on her house didn't reach far enough all the way out to the street to get any identification of anything. But I think it's important and incumbent on us all, if we're to be prepared, that we pay attention to our surroundings, that we take a good hard look at what's going on in our neighborhoods, what's going on in the news, and what's going on in the weather. This is the Prepared Suburbanite reminding you to be prepared always, and I'll see you all on the next video.